On June 10th, 2024, Capcom announced that Resident Evil 7 Biohazard will be ported to the iPhone 15 Pro, Pro Max, and iPads with Apple's M1 chip. This is not the first Resident Evil game to be ported on Apple's current phone/iPad generation. When Apple showcased the gaming potential of their next generation of devices, the Resident Evil 4 remake was shown working natively. This meant no cloud streaming, which is how other lower powered devices would port big games that couldn't be natively ran on the console, i.e. Resident Evil 7 on the Nintendo Switch. Resident Evil Village was also ported to Apple devices, but there hasn't been much loud press about them between the two. So either they were horrible or just another attempt at making mobile gaming on par with console/PC gaming. But Apple's Resident Evil 7 Biohazard port is a completely different story. Welcome to another episode of Thoughts to Chew On, the show where the chopping block gets fleshed out. And woof! Resident Evil 7 flops on mobile, sells less than 2,000 iOS units. How did Resident Evil 7, the game that revived Resident Evil, have the opposite effect on the world of mobile gaming? Well, the easiest thing to blame, and most people will too, is the fact that they've locked it to the most recent generation of Apple devices. Who is going to spend thousands of dollars to play a game that you have on a console or PC that costs half of that? Hell, you could even buy a Steam Deck and a copy of Resident Evil 4 Remake and you'd spend less. But this feels like a red herring. GOG.com released a port of the original Resident Evil and eventually the rest of the trilogy. And while they have their issues, the port only exists because Capcom liked GOG's demo, so they got the green light. Sonic Dream Team is locked to Apple devices because Apple funded the game, and if they didn't, the game wouldn't have been made. So while these circumstances can feel frustrating or ridiculous, some of these games or ports exist because they wouldn't have been made otherwise. Could the failure of this port be due to its price tag? Most mobile ports operate under a download first, play a bit, and then buy the rest of the game model. The most popular example of this is Super Mario Run, where you're allowed to play up to the first world, and then you have to pay $9.99 to play the rest. Brock, the Investigator, great game by the way, allowed up to 2 to 3 hours of the game to be experienced before asking you $1.99 for each following chapter or $7.99 for the rest of the game. Slender the Arrival's mobile port only allowed you to play to the first level before asking you to pay $9.99 for the rest. Essentially, this is the modernized version of a demo during the Xbox 360 era. Rest in peace. At this point, the balance between gimmick and reasonably priced is struck. But what about the Resident Evil ports that came before 7? While you can play a bit of Apple's RE4 remake port, the price to play the rest of the game is $60. $60 for a game that's $30 to $40 on sale everywhere else. And even when it's not on sale, it's marginally cheaper than the mobile port. This doesn't even include the Separate Ways DLC or any of the costumes that are available as downloaded content. It's just vanilla Resident Evil 4 Remake that does not run the best and has its own issues because, like all ports, they're compromised. Compared to every other mobile port that follows this model, it's disgustingly expensive and you need a phone that's $1,000 to run it. Keep in mind that this game is meant to showcase the power of the new iPhone, and it's maybe slightly better than a Switch port. Unfortunately, I don't have the new iPhone, so I can't give you my hands-on impression, but there are many videos on the subject. Optically, this looks horrible and greedy, but let me tell you that the rabbit hole goes deeper. Resident Evil Village charges you $40 for the full game, and if you want to buy the DLC, you have to pay $19.99, which totals to $60 plus some tax here and there. Keep in mind that at this point, Resident Evil Village had a gold edition that included all the DLC with the base game for a deal. So the fact that you're selling the base game for more than it's worth, and without its DLC, is kinda ridiculous. The same can be said about Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. There's a gold edition with all the DLC for a reduced price, but Capcom and by extension Apple expect people to pay $20 for a game that came out in 2017 without its DLC. Understandably, there is merit to playing these games on the go. I mean, who wouldn't want to play Resident Evil on the go? Instead of walking with a portable console like the Switch and the Steam Deck, You can play these games on something that can fit in your pocket. But the fact that these games are expensive for no reason, on top of being on a phone that's also expensive, there are more reasons to pass on this. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, being released after 4 Remake and Village, is also why it's not doing well sales-wise. Resident Evil 7 is a game that still holds up and looks gorgeous and deliciously gory. But it's the first game to use the RE engine, so the kinks that were fixed with future releases are still present here. So that could also be why people aren't that interested in getting 7. If the graphically superior 4 Remake and Village have issues on my iPhone, why would I spend more money on a game that doesn't look as good and now won't run as well? The last thing I want to touch on is the way that games have been marketed. While Apple and other companies have supported mobile game controllers, such as the Backbone, the marketing has always shown a bunch of buttons on the screen. How can you see how cool it is to play these games on your phone when every button known to man is littering the screen? On top of looking messy, who wants to play a game where they'll be so uncomfortable you might break your hands playing the game? To the consumer, it just looks unappealing and feels like another point against getting a product that's flagged with reasons not to get it. But I have a solution that could help push people over the hump of getting these games. Start selling these games bundled with a Backbone controller or some equivalent to it. You can charge $60 and it will be a better deal to get consumers to at least check it out, because even those who have a phone that can run it are not buying it. As stated in multiple articles, 83,000 people are downloading the game and checking out the demo, but are dipping out the moment it asks you to pay for it. Out of the 83,000 people who downloaded it, only 2,000 copies were sold. This totals $23,000 in revenue, minus the 30% that Apple takes, which is disturbingly abysmal. The other AAA games that have been released aren't doing well, but I don't think it's because of the prices of the games alone. As I've shown throughout this video, it is a myriad of tiny things that have sunken this endeavor by Apple. The fact that it's stuck on the newest generation of Apple devices, the price, the reception, and the accessibility via playing the game comfortably. All of these things are why the mobile port of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard failed. Thanks for watching. If there are any other topics you want me to cover in the next Thoughts to Chew On, let me know in the comment section below. If you liked the video and want to see more, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. I'd like to thank my patrons, Leocrid, RetroRoy, Hack13, Neosai, Burbsai, the channel with the freakishly long name, Hachi, and Sarah Cato for supporting the channel. For $1 a month, your name will show up right here on top of early access to new videos, and for $3 a month, you can be chosen to sponsor a video of your choice. So if you want me to read, play, or watch your favorite anything, or the worst things known to man, here is your chance, and I can't say no, sadly. Love you guys, and shamalamoomoo.